Marcus Hayes never expected trouble when he returned home from his morning run. Sweat dripping from his forehead, he slowed his pace as he approached the gates of his suburban neighborhood. That's when he noticed two men in tactical-looking uniforms leaning against a black SUV. Their patches read HOA security enforcement, but something about them didn't sit right. "Hey, you don't belong here," one of the men barked, stepping forward. Marcus frowned. He'd lived in this neighborhood for 3 years, paid his dues and kept to himself. "Excuse me?" he asked calmly. "You heard me," the taller one sneered. "Show ID or we'll remove you." Marcus's jaw tightened. "I live here. My house is right down the street." The shorter one stepped closer, gripping his baton. "Yeah? Then prove it." Before Marcus could answer, the taller man shoved him hard in the chest. He stumbled back but kept his composure. "You're making a mistake," Marcus warned, but they didn't listen. The two fake cops lunged at him, raining blows on his ribs and back. Marcus raised his arms, blocking some strikes but taking several brutal hits. A final shove sent him crashing onto the sidewalk, his cheek scraping the concrete. A few neighbors peeked from their windows but quickly closed their blinds. The men laughed, towering over him. "Stay out of here," one spat, before kicking him once more in the side. Marcus lay there, blood pooling at the corner of his lip, his chest heaving. Rage and humiliation burned inside him, but he stayed silent. Because Marcus Hayes wasn't just a homeowner. He was a Navy SEAL, one with brothers who didn't take kindly to anyone laying hands on their own. Marcus sat on the edge of his couch, pressing an ice pack against his swollen jaw. His body ached from the beating, but his mind was sharper than ever. Every strike he had endured replayed in his head, their smug laughter, the way they strutted off as if untouchable. He wasn't the kind of man who called the police for help. Not because he didn't believe in justice, but because he had lived long enough to know that sometimes justice needed to be delivered by the right hands. His phone buzzed on the table. A message lit up the screen. "Status check, brother." It was from Ethan Cole, a fellow SEAL and Marcus's closest friend from the teams. They had bled together on foreign soil, pulled each other out of fire, and carried fallen brothers home. Marcus typed back slowly, "Need to talk. Urgent." Minutes later, Ethan arrived, his presence filling the room with a quiet intensity. One glance at Marcus's bruised face told him everything. "Who did this?" he asked, voice low and dangerous. "Two clowns posing as HOA cops," Marcus muttered. "Beat me outside my own neighborhood, said I didn't belong." Ethan's eyes hardened. "They picked the wrong man." Marcus nodded, his lips curling into a grim smile. "I wasn't going to escalate it, but they crossed a line." Ethan leaned forward, his hand resting on Marcus's shoulder. "You want the team in?" Marcus hesitated. He knew what it meant to call them. Their loyalty wasn't symbolic. It was absolute. If he gave the word, those fake cops would learn what real warriors looked like. Finally, Marcus whispered, "Yeah, call the brothers." The storm was about to gather. The night was still when Ethan stepped onto the back porch, phone pressed against his ear. He spoke in code, but the urgency in his tone left no room for doubt. "We've got a situation stateside. One of ours was hit. I'm activating the circle." On the other end, voices answered with quiet resolve. "Understood." "Coordinates?" Ethan sent the details. Within minutes, the network of Navy SEAL brothers, scattered across bases, cities and assignments, was in motion. For them, distance was never an obstacle. When a brother called, they answered. Back inside, Marcus sat straighter despite the pain in his ribs. He felt a surge of pride knowing his brothers had his back. This wasn't about revenge, it was about principle. Men who abused power, even fake power, had to be shown the line they crossed. By midnight, 3 SUVs rolled into Marcus's driveway. Out stepped familiar faces: Caleb, the sharp-eyed sniper, Ramirez, the heavy hitter with a heart of gold, and Brooks, the tech specialist who could find anyone, anywhere. They embraced Marcus, their expressions dark with concern. "What happened, brother?" Caleb asked, scanning Marcus's injuries. "They called themselves HOA cops, beat me down in broad daylight. Neighbors watched and did nothing." Ramirez's fists clenched. "Fake badges? Fake authority? They won't like what happens next." Brooks pulled out a tablet, already working. "Give me a description. I'll track them before dawn." Marcus described the SUV, their faces, their arrogance. Brooks's fingers danced across the screen, pulling up surveillance feeds, license plates, and neighborhood registries. Within minutes he smirked. Got 'em. Marcus stood, wincing but determined. Good, because tomorrow they're going to learn exactly who they messed with. The hunt had officially begun. At sunrise, the team gathered in Marcus's garage. The space had been converted into a tactical hub, shelves lined with gear, maps pinned to the walls, and a workbench that now held weapons neatly laid out. The air was heavy with purpose. Brooks projected a map on the wall. 2 red dots glowed over a nearby industrial park. Our fake HOA cops are based here, he explained. Their SUV belongs to a shell company. No records of legitimate security work, just intimidation. Marcus's jaw tightened. So they're con artists with muscle, and they chose to use it on me. Caleb adjusted his rifle case. Not for long, but Marcus raised his hand. Listen, this isn't about storming in, guns blazing. We do this clean, expose them, strip their power, and make sure they can't touch anyone else again. The men nodded. They weren't thugs. They were warriors with discipline. Ramirez smirked. Still, a little fear in their eyes wouldn't hurt. By mid-morning, the SUVs rolled silently through backroads, avoiding attention. The team dressed down in jeans and hoodies, blending in but carrying the weight of their skill. They parked a block from the warehouse and moved on foot, their formation instinctive. Marcus's heart pounded, not from fear, but anticipation. He replayed the moment of being shoved to the ground, the sting of boots against his ribs, his mind steadied with one thought: this ends today. As they closed in, Brooks whispered, "Cameras on the east side, motion sensors, cheap ones. I can loop the feed." Marcus gave a sharp nod. "Do it." One by one, the team slipped into position, shadows moving with lethal precision. The predators had just become the prey. The team moved like a single organism, each member aware of the other's breath and step. Marcus crouched behind a dumpster, heartbeat steady, watching 2 men through a gap in chain-link fencing. They lounged on crates, smoking, blindingly casual for men who'd beaten someone in public. Brooks whispered into his collar, feeding the looped feed into a private channel. "East cam's looping." 5 minutes, he said. Caleb scanned windows, mapping entry points and escape routes. Ramirez checked tools, zip ties, distraction charges, a small medkit, then looked at Marcus with a wordless nod. Marcus remembered concrete under his cheek, the sting in his ribs, the taste of blood. It fed his resolve, but did not cloud his judgment. "Silent entry," he said. "No lethal force unless necessary. We expose them, not become them." They split into pairs. Marcus and Ethan approached a side door while Caleb and Ramirez prepared roof access. Brooks stayed by the van, fingers flying across keyboards, eyes on multiple feeds. The night smelled of oil and old rain. Marcus felt alive, senses attuned, muscles remembering movements honed over years. Ethan bypassed the lock in seconds. They slipped inside like ghosts, boots whispering on concrete. The warehouse smelled of dust and stale smoke. Crates formed a maze, shadows pooling. Voices came from a back office, men trading threats and laughs. Marcus signaled, they advanced. Ramirez set a soft charge that thudded, drawing 2 fake cops toward the sound. As they moved, Marcus and Ethan closed in, seizing them with practiced speed, slamming them against metal shelving. "Hands where I can see them," Marcus commanded. His voice was calm, clinical. The men froze, eyes wide, suddenly aware their fake authority had vanished. Around them, the team secured exits, cuffed the rest, and recorded confessions to ensure they faced justice. The 2 men Marcus had encountered outside his neighborhood now knelt on the grimy warehouse floor, hands zip-tied behind their backs. Their uniforms, so crisp and intimidating yesterday, looked pitiful now under the flickering fluorescent light. Ramirez paced in front of them, his bulk a silent threat. Caleb leaned against a crate, watching with sniper's patience. Brooks kept the cameras jammed, ensuring no alarms were raised. Marcus stepped forward, bruises still visible on his cheek. He crouched low so his eyes met theirs. "Remember me?" he asked quietly. One of the men swallowed hard. The other tried to smirk. "You're making a big mistake, buddy. You don't know who we work for." Ethan's laugh cut through the air, cold and sharp. "Funny, you're saying that to a Navy SEAL team. Do you know who we work for?" The smirk faltered. Marcus pulled a phone from his pocket and hit record. "Names. Who's behind this scam? You run security, extortion, intimidation. Who signs your checks?" The taller one spat to the side. "You think roughing us up will make us talk?" Marcus didn't flinch. Instead, he lifted his shirt. revealing bruises across his ribs. "You did this to me, outside my own home. You humiliated me in front of my neighbors. That ends today. Either you talk, or you disappear into the system we can drop you in," Caleb added. "And trust me, we have connections that make your worst nightmares look like summer camp." The silence stretched. Finally, the shorter man broke. It's not just us, there's a bigger crew. HOA's a front. We get paid to scare homeowners into fines and buyouts." Marcus's eyes hardened. "Then tonight the whole operation comes crashing down." The confession opened a door Marcus had expected, but hoped would remain closed. Details spilled, meeting spots, payment channels, and the name of an attorney who rubber-stamped fake security licenses. Each fact was another link in a chain that fed on fear. Brooks fed the names into a secure channel and cross-referenced databases. He found a trail, shell companies, vacant offices, and a bank account tied to a landscaping business that existed only on paper. "They built a bureaucracy of lies," Brooks said. Ethan and Caleb watched the captives while Ramirez and Marcus searched crates and filing cabinets. They pulled out ledgers, receipts, and flyers offering neighborhood protection with an embossed HOA crest that nobody had authorized. The team photographed everything, each image a nail in the fraudulent operation's coffin. Marcus felt vindicated, but feeling was tempered by anger at how easily people were exploited. "They preyed on neighbors too scared to ask questions," he said. "That's cowardice." Ramirez found a ledger listing extortion pickups and dates tied to homeowners forced to pay fines. The names matched complaints on a local forum Marcus had ignored. Caleb noted, they weren't clever about hiding it, they relied on silence. A notification from Brooks shifted the room. A supplier on the list had moved funds to another account, fast money that could erase evidence. "We need to freeze those accounts," he said. Marcus nodded. The team acted with precision. Calls to contacts, timestamps recorded, evidence catalogued. They weren't executing vigilante justice. They were building a file that could stand in court. Outside, a patrol car rolled past the warehouse, unaware. Inside, the seals kept working. The network was starting to unravel, and Marcus knew dismantling it would take more than muscle. It would take paperwork, persistence, and patience that brothers possessed. By nightfall, the SEAL team had everything they needed: names, ledgers, accounts, and confessions on record. Still, Marcus wasn't satisfied. "We've cut off the branches," he said, "but the root's still alive. Until we take down the leader, this grows back." Brooks tapped his tablet. The money trail leads to one man, Robert Kincaid, ex-cop dishonorably discharged. He built this fake HOA force to line his pockets, runs it from a mansion 3 miles away. Ethan smirked. "Perfect. Let's pay him a house call." The team prepped in silence. No guns blazing, no chaos, just precision. They weren't vigilantes, they were tacticians. The plan was simple: get inside, corner Kincaid, and force him into the light. Near midnight, the SUVs pulled up a block from Kincaid's sprawling home. Lights still burned inside, a party in full swing. Laughter drifted into the night. Cocky, careless. Marcus led them across the lawn, moving like shadows. Ramirez and Caleb secured the perimeter, while Ethan picked the back lock. Within seconds they were in, slipping through hallways lined with expensive art, the stench of cigars heavy in the air. They found Kincaid in his study, drink in hand, bragging to 2 associates about keeping the neighborhood clean. Marcus stepped from the shadows, voice low but sharp. "Funny, I don't remember you cleaning anything, except wallets." The glass slipped from Kincaid's hand. His face drained of color as 6 figures emerged around him, silent and lethal. Ethan leaned in, voice cold as steel. "Game's over. You messed with the wrong brotherhood." For the first time, Robert Kincaid looked afraid. Robert Kincaid's smugness cracked as Marcus laid a folder of evidence on his mahogany desk. Photos, ledgers, recordings, all the pieces of his empire exposed. His associates shifted uncomfortably, realizing the fortress of power they thought protected them had already been breached. "You don't know what you're doing," Kincaid growled, forcing bravado into his voice. "I have lawyers, connections. This will disappear by morning." Marcus leaned closer, his bruises still visible. "So will your freedom. We've already sent files to federal contacts. By dawn, your accounts will be frozen, your men rounded up, and your name dragged through every courtroom that matters." Ethan tossed a phone onto the desk, playing the confession from the captured enforcers. The words echoed in the quiet room, damning and undeniable. Caleb added, Your army of fakes folded the moment they faced real men. You built power on fear. Fear collapses fast. Kincaid tried to rise, but Ramirez shoved him back into the chair with a single hand. Sit down. You're not in control anymore. For the first time, Kincaid's mask slipped. Panic flickered in his eyes. You can't just come in here. Marcus cut him off. You beat me in front of my own neighbors. You tried to strip me of dignity in my own home. But I'm not just a homeowner. I'm a Navy SEAL. And I don't fight alone. Brooks sent the final transmission. Data packets secured with federal seals. Evidence is delivered, he confirmed. Warrants will follow. Marcus stood tall, towering over Kincaid. You're finished. Outside, sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with every second. The storm Marcus promised had finally arrived, this time carrying justice. Red and blue lights flickered through the tall windows of Kincaid's mansion. The once lively party had gone silent, guests huddled in corners, unsure whether to run or hide. The sirens grew louder until they cut abruptly outside, engines humming, doors slamming. Marcus and his team stood motionless, their presence a wall of discipline. They weren't here to flee, they were here to hand Kincaid over. Kincaid's voice cracked as he tried to salvage control. You set me up. This won't hold. I'll have bail within hours. Brooks shook his head, showing him the live feed on his tablet. Federal agents swarmed the property, not just local cops. No bail, Robert. Money laundering, fraud, impersonating law enforcement. You're going away for years. A heavy knock rattled the study doors. Federal agents, open up. Marcus nodded at Ethan, who unlatched the door. 2 agents in tactical vests entered, weapons drawn. Their eyes scanned the room, pausing on Kincaid before shifting to Marcus and the SEAL team. Recognition flickered. Respect followed. Marcus stepped aside. He's yours. Evidence has already been sent. The agents cuffed Kincaid, reading his rights as his face contorted with rage. You'll regret this. He spat, but his words carried no weight. His empire of fear had collapsed. Ethan leaned closer to whisper, The only one regretting anything is you, Robert. As Kincaid was dragged out, Marcus exhaled deeply, tension leaving his body. His bruises still throbbed, but justice dulled the ache. The neighborhood, his home, would no longer be under siege. Caleb broke the silence. Mission accomplished, brother. But Marcus shook his head. Not yet. We've got neighbors to protect, and fear doesn't vanish overnight. The following morning, the neighborhood was unusually quiet. For the first time in weeks, no black SUV loitered by the entrance, no fake officers prowled the sidewalks. Instead, real patrol cars made rounds, ensuring the last pieces of Kincaid's operation were dismantled. Marcus walked slowly toward his house, his ribs still sore but his head held high. Neighbors peeked from porches, some offering tentative waves, others murmuring apologies for their silence when he was attacked. He didn't hold it against them. Fear was a powerful leash. Ethan and Ramirez flanked him, while Caleb and Brooks followed behind. The team drew curious stares. They weren't dressed in uniforms, but their postures spoke volumes. Everyone could sense these men weren't ordinary visitors. At his driveway, Mrs. Langley, the elderly widow from 2 houses down, approached with trembling hands. Mr. Hayes, I saw what they did to you. I wanted to help, but I was so afraid. I'm sorry. Marcus offered her a gentle smile. You don't need to apologize. None of you will have to fear them again. Word spread quickly. Soon a small group of residents gathered, questions spilling out. Who were those men? Were they really cops? What happens now? Marcus explained everything in measured tones, leaving out the SEAL-specific details, but assuring them justice had been served. For the first time, he felt the neighborhood's eyes on him, not with suspicion, but with gratitude. Children waved shyly, and adults nodded with respect. As the crowd dispersed, Ethan clapped Marcus on the shoulder. Looks like your cover as the quiet neighbor is blown. Marcus chuckled softly. Maybe. But if it means people feel safe again, I'll take it. The battle was over, but rebuilding trust had only just begun. That evening, the SEAL team gathered on Marcus's back porch. The sun dipped low, painting the sky in shades of orange and red. Bottles of water and untouched pizza boxes sat on the table between them, but no one was hungry. They were still wired from the mission. Ethan broke the silence first. It's strange, isn't it? We've stormed compounds overseas, faced warlords, terrorists. Yet the fight that shook you most happened in your own backyard. Marcus nodded, staring into the distance. Because it wasn't just me. It was the principle. These guys didn't attack a soldier. They attacked a neighbor, a community. They used fear to control people who just wanted peace. Ramirez leaned back in his chair, arms crossed. That's what burned me. They had no honor. At least overseas, the enemy believed in something, even if it was twisted. These clowns? They just wanted power and money. Caleb sipped his water, ever the quiet observer. Doesn't matter where it happens. Injustice is injustice, and when it lands on one of us, it lands on all of us. Brooks grinned faintly. Well, one thing's certain, we definitely made HOA security a bad career choice in this county. Laughter broke the tension, but it was short-lived. Marcus's expression hardened. There will always be more like them. People who think uniforms, fake or real, make them untouchable. We can't fight every battle, but we can remind them some battles aren't worth picking. The brothers nodded. They weren't just a team when deployed. Their bond extended beyond any mission, any border. Tonight proved it. Ethan raised his bottle. To Marcus, and to never leaving a brother behind. They clinked bottles, the sound sharp against the evening air. Word of Kincaid's downfall spread quickly. Within days, news crews filmed outside the mansion as federal agents hauled out boxes of documents. Headlines ran with phrases like "fake HOA empire exposed" and "community saved from extortion ring." Neighbors who once whispered in fear now gathered openly. Block meetings sprang up on front lawns where people planned neighborhood watches, not the kind built on intimidation, but on genuine care. Families who had been too afraid to complain about bogus fines shared their stories, and for the first time, they were met with support instead of silence. Marcus watched it all quietly. He hadn't asked to be the center of attention, but people naturally turned to him. At one such gathering, a young father approached. "Marcus, when they came after me for money, I almost sold my house. If it weren't for you, we'd be gone. Thank you." Marcus shook his hand firmly. "You don't owe me thanks. You owe yourselves the courage to stand together. That's how this neighborhood stays safe." Mrs. Langley, the elderly widow, raised her voice. "Then let's do it. No more turning away when trouble comes. We're stronger when we stand up." The crowd cheered softly, a ripple of unity replacing the old current of fear. For Marcus, it was the closure he needed, not just that the criminals were caught, but that his neighbors had found their voices. Later that night, he sat on his porch with Ethan, watching kids ride bikes down the street. "You see that?" Marcus said. "That's what we fight for. Not medals, not headlines. Just this, families feeling safe." Ethan nodded. "Mission complete, brother." But deep down, Marcus knew the story wasn't over. For men like him, the mission never truly ended. The neighborhood returned to normal in the days that followed, but Marcus knew his life had changed forever. The bruises on his ribs would fade, but the memory of being beaten in front of his own home would never leave him. It wasn't the pain that lingered. It was the reminder that injustice could strike anywhere, even behind gated walls. One evening, as the sun dipped low, Marcus stood in his backyard with his SEAL brothers. They had stayed longer than planned, refusing to leave until they knew he and his community were truly safe. The air buzzed with cicadas, the smell of cut grass drifting through the quiet neighborhood. Ethan clasped Marcus's shoulder. "We've got deployments coming, but you'll never stand alone. You know that." Marcus nodded, voice steady. "I know. That's what keeps me going. We fight wars abroad, but sometimes the battles here at home mean even more. If we don't protect our own, who will?" Ramirez chuckled. "Besides, I think you scared the whole county out of ever faking a badge again." The men laughed, but behind it was truth. Their presence, their unity, had sent a message louder than any fist: brotherhood protects its own. As they prepared to part ways, Marcus looked over at the houses, children playing, families gathering on porches. For the first time since the attack, he felt peace. He whispered, almost to himself, "This is why we serve." The others heard. Ethan raised his hand in a quiet salute. Caleb and Ramirez followed, Brooks last, his expression solemn. Marcus returned the gesture, the silent oath of warriors echoing in the fading light. The mission was over. The bond remained eternal.